What's your name?
Oh, Juanita, Juanita.
Your middle name?
Pearl, Pearl.
Last name?
Pearl.
Pearl is your
Like
last
found
name?
in an oyster.
Oh, I thought that was your middle name.
No, my middle name's Joy.
Joy. Oh, that's a beautiful name.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea where your parents came up with your name?
Absolutely. Juanita was from the Civil War. There was a Civil War boy who apparently had a girlfriend named Juanita. And so he wrote this poem for her. And it was turned into a song, and Bing Crosby recorded the song, and I have a copy of it.
Oh, very
And so anyhow, then he got killed. So when they were going through his things, they found this. Well, somebody took it and made the song out of it. And so my mom used to sing it to me. It's a pretty song. And she used to sing it to me when I was little. And then when I was born, I had an older brother. And he had had polio, and so he was half paralyzed. And so I came along, and my dad said, we named you middle name Joy because you brought joy back to our life. So that's how I got my name.
That is a wonderful story.
Yeah.
When's your birthday?
September 25th, 1931.
Okay. Got a few months till your birthday comes up.
92 on my birthday.
You're 92. Oh.
Yeah, I'll be 92.
I did not do
If
that
I
math
make it-
in my head.
If I make it that long.
You don't look it, and your memory certainly doesn't seem like someone in their 90s. Where did you grow up?
Yakima.
Yakima?
Well, partially. I mean, I was born in Yakima, but my folks had met and lived down on the coast. And so my dad and his foster brother built a house down at Ocean Park on the Long Beach Peninsula. And so that's where we spent our summers, was down on the ocean. So it was winters in Yakima and summers on the ocean. And then when I was 15, it was down on the ocean permanently.
Oh, very nice.
Yes.
What do you remember about growing up in your hometown?
In Yakima,
Mm-hmm.
freedom.
Freedom?
Get on your bicycle and go any place you wanted to go and not worry about anything. Get up in the morning and go outdoors and play and not worry about anything. Because there wasn't these screwy people around. And, there wasn't drugs and stuff like this that makes people go screwy. And, and just growing up, and I had very progressive parents for the eras that they grew up in. Because there's 3 girls. My sisters are way younger than me. They're 6 and 8 years younger than I am. And but they taught us that it didn't make any difference, boy, girl, you could do what you wanted to do if you just put your mind to it and went. They also taught us not to be followers, but to be leaders. And they taught us all these things, which I don't think they're even teaching them now. And so, but they were really progressive for when they grew up, because, my mother was born in 1907 and my dad was born in 1902. So that they didn't, they weren't taught those things, but the two of them together, that's the way they did. And you knew that you were protected, that you knew that your dad would absolutely slaughter somebody if they touched you, and you knew that how much you were loved and cared for. And so it was a great life. I had a great life, really.
That's awesome.
And growing up and traveling. And after my brother died, then we went on my dad was a fruit and produce man. And so he ran trucks from Yakima to Los Angeles, took Washington produce down there and brought California produce up here. And so we went on the truck after my brother died, because believe it or not, he died in May, and I was 2 in September, and I had a nervous breakdown. at that age. And so they had to take me away from the house and away from everything. So we went on the truck. So I spent the first 6 years of my life riding on a truck. And my uncles, my mother's brothers, would drive my dad's trucks too. So I could ride with my mother on the truck or my dad or one of my uncles. I could trade trucks wherever I wanted. And I was, I kind of was a princess, except that I obeyed. I was not spoiled where you didn't obey, you obeyed. And I don't ever remember being whipped or punished or anything, except that my mother would get this look on her face and she'd say, oh, I'm so disappointed. And then you die. I mean, you just die. Because
I know, the disappointment. That's
wants
worse.
to disappoint
Yes.
your mother?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it was great because I tap danced and I sang and I made money because all the truckers knew me and they'd throw money at me. And one time my mother told me, she said, you made $70 one day, one evening. And I said, what did I get for it? She said, a warm bed and a bath in a hotel. I thought, well, that's okay. Yeah, instead of sleeping in the truck.
That is a good
Yeah.
trade.
Right. But it was wonderful because I met so many people, So my dad, with the war and everything and stuff, and the government came in and confiscated his trucks and made him work for the government and haul the stuff that they wanted hauled, which was still food, but it was what they wanted. And so then we had my grandfather's ranch down in Oregon, down on the John Day River. And so then my dad decided we'd go down there. So we went down there and we raised 80 acres of potatoes and 80 acres of gardening. And he hauled it on the truck and sold it. And so we were down there. So then I went to school in this little country school at Morrow. And that was fun because it was, not many kids and stuff. Where in Yakima, you had 50 or so kids in a class, it's big classes. And when you got down there wasn't that many kids. And so it was a lot of fun. And I had to board in town because there wasn't any buses went out. But the school paid for your boarding in town. And because they couldn't bring you to school, so they paid for you to be there. And but I have good memories about that. There was four other girls, and I stayed in this one big house, and these older people, like your grandparents, and they were so nice, and they just did everything. And of course, in those old houses, there's no heat upstairs. They have vents in the floor so that heat could go up through from downstairs. It could go up through upstairs. And so this lady, she would take and heat rocks in the fire, and then she'd wrap them in towels and put them in your bed at night so your bed would be warm when you went to bed. And all these different things, which are, you never even heard of such things. But that's what they did because it was cold up there. But your bed would be nice and warm because it had these hot rocks in it. And so, but it was really nice, to do that. And then I participated in sports. Sports I love.
Video. So, which sports did you play?
Well, see, when I grew up, girls couldn't play all sports.
Mm-hmm.
There was boys' sports, which was baseball, and there was no football. And so it was baseball and stuff with the boys. The girls could play basketball. You could play volleyball. You could play badminton. And you could run track. But it was segregated. The girls played out in front of the school. The boys played behind. And I bet you didn't know that they segregated the playgrounds, that they did.
No.
Yeah. And and then also the girls had square dancing and those old-fashioned dances that they danced, you know, and we used to do competition with the other schools. And our school always won. We were always good. Yeah. And that went into junior high school. We were doing that. And then the Y built a bunch of tennis courts about a block away from my junior high school. And so they were insisting everybody had to learn to play tennis. Well, that's the most stupidest game there ever was. You like it?
I don't like tennis, but it's just, I actually, I don't dislike it. I've never played it, but it's just funny that for you to say that. You just.
Yeah, it is because, I mean, all you're playing is dodgeball. So I thought, this is dumb. I'm not doing this.
What was your favorite to play?
What was my favorite to play? I love to play badminton. Used to have a lot of competitions, badminton. But mainly I like the track. I like to run.
Yeah.
Yeah. And our little teeny school there, we went into competition in Salem. And of course, I don't know whether we were a B school or a Z school because we were just little. And anyhow, then we won the track competition. And now that's in the 5th grade. I was a 5th and the 6th grade. But 5th and 6th grades were in the same room.
Okay.
You had 2 teachers, but you was in the same room. So, you know, when you're in the 5th grade, you learn the 6th grade work real fast.
I'm sure you definitely did.
Yeah.
You were
And
smart
so,
cookie.
I remember the 6th grade teacher's name was Miss Shipler. And then in later years, I found out she was from here.
Oh,
And
really?
I didn't find that out until we had come up here, and I seen her name on something, and I thought, my goodness. So I asked this one lady, and she said, oh, yes, she's from here. She's a school teacher. I said, yeah, she was my school teacher. But she'd retired and was living in California, I guess. But she was really a nice person. And I loved art. I loved drawing, and I loved singing. With my squawky voice, you'd never think I was a singer, but I was. And so I sang in light operas and all kinds of stuff.
Really?
And yeah, I
That's
sang.
neat.
But my vocal cords don't work correctly anymore.
Is there audio of you singing, like
No.
on the internet or anything?
Heavens, no.
No.
Internet wasn't even here.
I know, but I thought maybe someone recorded you performing. They upload
No.
all sorts of things.
No.
I might look. There might be
No,
something
there's
that
nothing about me on the internet. Look
Well,
me up
there's
on the
gonna be
internet.
now. I'm gonna find you.
Look me up on the internet and it'll say, she's old, she lives in that house forever, and it says she's some relation, it lists my husband's name. I'm some relation to him. Other than that, they don't know anything about me.
How long have you lived in this house?
Since 1960.
Yeah, it's a great house. I thought that when
It
I was
is.
walking up. I like
Yeah.
the.
It's either built in 10 or 12. Now, we have a, what do they call it? It's what used to be used for a deed before you registered houses, you know, and you had this deed for it, but can't think of the name of it right now. But anyhow, then it says 10, but this down at the courthouse they say 12. So who knows?
They might have been a little later putting it
Yeah.
in their system.
I know that they didn't put this water system in until 12.
Maybe that's
And
how
it's hooked up to the sewer line. The bathroom downstairs and the bathroom upstairs are hooked up to the sewer line. The kitchen downstairs and the kitchen upstairs are hooked up to the sewer line separately. And that's because the bathrooms were hooked up first and the kitchens were run out into what they called gray water pools. And it was out in the alley, and we found that out because it rained really hard one time, and we parked our trailer out in front of the garage. And I looked out the window, and the trailer's sitting at an angle, went out, and the whole thing had caved in, and there was the big gray pool it used to be. So we had to call the city, and they came and filled it full of rocks and what have you, and got it all up. But so then we knew where that went to, where your house water went to. But they put the water meter in out here in 1912. But other than that, and the house was, it's a good house. Very good house.
What was your mom's name?
My mother's name was Harriet.
Oh, I like that.
With 2 T's.
What was your maiden name?
Tonkins.
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 What was Harriet's maiden name? Do you remember?
Ross.
Roth.
Yeah, my mother was related or descendant from George Ross, signer of the Declaration of Independence, and Stephen Hopkins, signer of the Declaration of Independence, and Richard Warren, who came over on the Mayflower.
Wow.
My mother's got a pedigree.
You got a pedigree then.
Yeah.
And then what was your father's name?
His name was Richard Merle.
Tell me about your parents, besides the truck driving and stuff.
Oh, you mean when they were young?
Or just whatever.
Oh,
What, do you have children?
I have 2 adopted daughters.
What, if you were going to tell them a story about your parents, what would you tell them?
They get up and leave.
Why do you say that?
Because they'd be bored.
No, I bet they wouldn't.
Oh, no, there's really not too much. My mother grew up in a family of 6, 2 girls and 4 boys. She was right in the middle. And my granddad was a carpenter. And my grandmother, of course, was a housewife. But she did dressmaking and tailoring and stuff for people, so she still was helping with the income. And my mother went to work cleaning people's houses when she was about 10, 11 years old, taking care of kids and all that stuff, and saving her money so she could pay to go to high school. And so she went to high school, and then saved her money, she went to business college in Portland. And so she did bookkeeping for a lot of small businesses and stuff. But she also was a seamstress and a tailor, and she made everything. She made drapes, she made everything. Anything you can think of, she could make it. And so all my clothes, all my life, I never had bought clothes ever. She made everything. She made right down to your underwear. Yeah.
That's really
She made
cool.
everything.
And
Yeah.
so cool that she went to college, because I mean, like you
She
said
went
about
to
being
business.
progressive,
Yeah,
she was
she
ahead
went
of her
to-
time.
Yeah, she went to business college in Portland. She thought they wanted her to go to beauty school. She didn't want to be no hairdresser. And so she went to the business college there in Portland way back when. That would be like in
The 20s?
25,
Yeah.
somewhere in there. And but her and my dad had known each other since she was 13 and he was 18. So, yeah.
And then, how many siblings do you have?
I have 2 sisters.
2 sisters?
Yeah, I have 2 brothers who never made it.
You said the one passed
Yeah,
away. So
and
I
then
guess
there was one born after me, and he didn't make it but a couple of days, I guess. And then my sister next to me, she's 6 years younger, and the other one is 8 years younger.
What are their names?
Patricia Ann and Dorothea May.
Oh, I like the name Dorothea. You don't hear that often. Did you girls ever get in trouble as kids?
Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not. No. In fact, my sister Patricia, when she was going to be married, this fellow was Air Force, and he worked something with the Pentagon. I don't know what it was. But anyhow, they had to investigate the whole family, FBI, you know.
Really?
And he came, and I heard him tell my dad, "You got the boringest family we ever lived into." Because
check us
nobody
out.
ever did anything. We just worked. That's all we did.
Well, that made for a quick investigation.
Yes.
Which school did you go to high school in?
I didn't go to high school.
You didn't go to high school?
No.
So you're just self-taught because you like to learn. You
I know.
seem very educated.
See, when I was 13, I had polio.
Okay.
And they didn't tell us that there was an epidemic going on. They kept their mouths shut in Yakima. They never said a word.
Mm-hmm.
And so my mother thought I had a bad cold, and I was susceptible to pneumonia. And I'd almost died several times as a little kid from pneumonia. And so she kept me home from school. And when you were sick in those years, you got to sleep on the Davenport. You didn't have to go to your bedroom. And I thought that was great.
Kids still think that's
yes,
great. Mine fight to sleep on the couch.
Yes. And so anyhow, then I woke up in the morning, and of course I had to go to the bathroom. The only thing I could move was my head.
Oh.
I couldn't move anything else. Nothing moved, nothing worked. And so then they called this doctor. Of course, all the good doctors were gone to war. So we had what they called, the welfare doctors. And so she had to call this one. And so he said to bring over to his office, but do not come into the office. Drive into the alley and knock on the door and somebody will come out. And so we went. And my sister, that's 6 years younger than me, she was dragging one leg, so she was with me. And one arm wasn't working. And so anyhow, then they looked at her. I don't remember anybody ever touching me. I didn't care. I was sick. And so then they said, go to the hospital. So they took us to the hospital. And of course, in those years, didn't have ambulances running around like now. You went in your own car.
Right.
And so got to the hospital, and my dad carried me in, and they laid me on the gurney. And so they took us into this room. I don't remember anybody ever touching me or anything. But they were with my sister, and she was crying. And so then we headed down the hallway. I also lost my eyesight. Couldn't see. All I could see was gray. And because there's two types of polio. One of them is paralytic, which paralyzes you from the waist down and takes care of your arms too. And then there's bulbar, which takes care of your chest and your head and stuff. And what it did, it paralyzed the optic nerves open. And when it did that, all you could see was light. So it just was a gray. And so anyhow, then they're pushing us somewhere. And my dad's coming along, and my mom's coming along, and my dad's really shook. And so then I hear this door. And then I hear him say to him, you can't go any further. And boy, he blew his cool. My kids all go where I want, blah, 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 blah. And my mom had to stop him. Well, my mother was 4'10". My dad was 6 foot. But she handled him good. And so anyhow, then we went. And so in this room, and then she told me, she said, now we're going to lift you. And I was in my nightgown, She said, we're going to lift you across and put you on a bed. Okay, go ahead. So they did. And then she told me, we have to take your nightgown off and put our nightgown on. So they did. And then she told me, she said, now we're going to lay you on your stomach. And she said, I'm going to be putting hot claws on your back. And she said, you'll think they will burn you, but she said they won't burn. And so okay, go ahead. I didn't care. I was too sick to care. And so started putting them on. Then I could hear my sister screaming. And so I said, can you bring my sister to me? She's so scared. And in a few minutes, well, then somebody took hold of my hand and pulled my arm out over the bed, and she grabbed me. So they pushed her bed in by mine. And then she was quiet. And so then she kept putting these packs on me. And I kept thinking, she said they were hot and I'm freezing to death. So finally I told her that. I said, they're not hot, they're so cold I'm freezing. And then there was just a shuffle of people. I don't know what went on because I couldn't see, but I could feel the people. And they rolled me over and they put, I guess, oxygen on me or something. I don't really know. And that's the last thing I remember. And then I have no idea time passage, but I remember I woke up. Have you ever been in that MIR machine, you know, with all that banging and clanging and crashing?
Uh-huh.
And I woke up to that kind of a noise, and I couldn't see, and I thought, what is that? So I asked if somebody was there. Nobody was there. Pretty soon I heard the door, and I said, is anybody here? And this woman said, yes, I'm here. I said, what's the noise? And she said, it's an iron lung. I said, what's an iron lung? She said, it's what you're in. I said, what am I in? I cannot see. And so then she came right over to me, put her hand on my face, and started explaining to me. I said, what's wrong with me? So then she told me I had polio. And so then she told me, you know, what they were going to do and all this kind of stuff. Well, by then I was 14. Because it was about 2 weeks before my 14th birthday. And so then, you know, it was so noisy and stuff. And I hate to say this, but back in those years, the people in the hospital were not kind. Mm-mm. You were trapped, and they did whatever the heck they wanted to do. Especially the aides were very mean. And so, you know, you just had, I have to think that I have to depend on these people. I don't know these people. I have to depend on them to feed me. I have to depend on them to clean me. I have to depend on them to do everything. And of course she told me that the reason I was in the iron lung was because I couldn't breathe. Well, I've had asthma since I was a kid, so that didn't help a bit. Right. And so anyhow then, I have no idea how long I was in the iron lung either, because time didn't mean nothing. But I remember this one time, my mother come. Of course, they didn't let anybody come for about 2 months after you got in there. And so anyhow, she wore real high heels, and her feet would go clickety-click, 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 clickety-click. And I could tell her steps as she's coming down the hallway. And the doctor had just been in. Well, he didn't tell me nothing. And so they were, I guess, at the door. I'm not sure because I couldn't see them. But anyhow, I heard him say, now you're going to face the fact she's going to be in a wheelchair and she's going to be blind for the rest of her life. And I thought to myself, it's not true. It's absolutely not true. Because I'm going to fight like everything to get over this. And if I fight hard, God's going to fight with me. And together, we're going to conquer it. And that's what I did. I fought. I worked hard. I did everything they told me to do. And so, but it was hard. I don't know how long I was blind, but one day then I was laying there in the bed, and there was a lady in the room. I don't know what she was doing, but anyhow, she was there. And I said, "Are there black spots on the ceiling?" And she said, "No," but she said it's an acoustic ceiling, got little holes in it. Maybe they look like black spots. Well, I could see black spots up there on the ceiling, which was the first thing that I'd ever seen for a long time. And so I just kept quiet. And pretty soon I could see shadows and things, and I just kept quiet. I didn't say anything to anybody. And so then as it got a little bit better and everything, then I told my mother. And so then she called my dad's optometrist, and he came and checked my eyes and stuff. And he said I had about a 2-point vision or something like that, you know, barely, but it was there. So he said, I think it's going to come back. And it did. And so then he made me some glasses. And so, but see, I'd wear glasses started when I was 5 years old because I had astigmatism. And when I was 13, didn't have to wear them no more. Astigmatism was gone. Yeah, right.